Hello everyone, welcome to Build Your Own. My name is Gagan and I'm a 4th year medical student. In this video today, we'll start with the pathology section. And our first topic for today will be growth adaptation, cellular injury and cell death. Okay, so before starting this video, I would like to advise you all to keep a pen and a notebook with you because there is a lot of stuff to remember in pathology section. So starting with our video. Now, what is adaptation? Adaptation is the ability of the body to cope up with stress. Now, there are three types in which a body can cope up with the stress. It is if there is increase in stress or if there is decrease in stress or if there is change in stress. If we have increased stress, our body will undergo hypertrophy, which is increase in size of cell, or it can undergo hyperplasia, which is increase in number of cells. There is a difference. There will be increase in size, and in hyperplasia there will be increase in number of cells. But if there is decrease in stress, the body will undergo hypotrophy, that is decrease in size. It is the opposite of hypertrophy, or we can say atrophy, which is similar to hypertrophy. It can be, the example of decreased stress can be seen as when there is decreased blood supply to an organ for a very long time. And the third one is when there is change in stress, the body's tendency is to undergo metaplasia. Metaplasia is when there is change in the particular epithelium, in the particular type of epithelium of an organ. Okay, so moving on to the next topic of our video, it is cellular injury. Now majorly there are 5 types of cellular injury that you need to remember. First is inflammation, second is nutritional deficiencies, third is hypoxia, fourth is trauma, and fifth is genetic mutations. Now discussing this all, now inflammation is reversible, as if we remove the source of inflammation, we can reverse the process of inflammation. Nutritional deficiencies is also reversible, as if we take the material that our body is deficient in, we can move back to being normal. Now, what is hypoxia? Hypoxia is decreased oxygen supply to any organ. Okay. Now, are you clear why hypoxia leads to cellular injury? This is very basic and not all books explain this information, but it is highly required that we understand this mechanism. So here is why. Now hypoxia means decreased oxygen supply to organ. So when there is decreased oxygen, there will be decreased ATP production. Now this decreased ATP will cause defect in three important processes of our body. First is sodium potassium pump. If this pump is defective, if this pump is not working properly, this will lead to accumulation of sodium and hence water in the cell. Second is calcium pump. If this pump is also not working properly, then there will be accumulation of calcium in cell. And third is aerobic glycolysis. Now aerobic means in the presence of oxygen, but the oxygen is deficient here, so this will eventually shift to anaerobic glycolysis. So the end product of anaerobic glycolysis is lactic acid. So there will be accumulation of lactic acid. Due to the defect in these three main processes, this will cause cell injury. This is very important. Now trauma. We all know that trauma can lead to cell injury. The word itself says that. Now, genetic mutation. Whenever there is mutation in the genes, this can also lead to cell injury. Moving on to the next topic, it is cell death. Now, pathologically speaking, what is cell death? Cell death is defined as when there is loss of nucleus. This is very important. Whenever you read a question that says there is loss of nucleus, you can say that the cell is dead. So what are the ways of loss of nucleus? It can be of three types. First is pycnosis, which means shrinking of nucleus. Second is karyohexis, which means breaking of nucleus into big parts. And last is karyolysis. In this, there is breaking of these big parts of nucleus into smaller ones. So there are basically two types of cell death. First is necrosis and apoptosis. These are the two types of cell death. Now, apoptosis is the cellular suicide, and necrosis is, it's like murder of the cell. Okay, so discussing first apoptosis, it is cellular suicide. It involves ATP, and no inflammation is seen in apoptosis. In this, the cell and the nucleus becomes very small, that is, shrinks, and these apoptotic bodies will be eaten by macrophages, that is, removed from the body by macrophages. Now, it can be physiological also or pathological, both. Example of it is when there is endometrial shedding in the menstrual cycle, so it is physiological. Now, how does this apoptosis occur? I'll explain. Apoptosis is mediated by the enzymes called caspases. First of all, we need to know that there are some enzymes in the cell membrane of the target cell which are called perforins. Perforins, as per the word, it creates pores in membrane of the target cell. These pores allow an enzyme which is called granzyme to enter into the cell, and it then activate caspases. Now, how does caspases mediate apoptosis? Caspases further activate two types of enzymes, which are proteases and endonucleases. Now, proteases results in the breakdown of cytoskeleton, which is a microtubule or microfilament, whereas endonuclease results in the breakdown of DNA. So, when there is breakdown of cytoskeleton and there is breakdown of DNA, this will result in apoptosis. Now, in necrosis, as we said, that it is like murder, whereas apoptosis was like cellular suicide. It involves inflammation, and it is always pathological, always. And it involves a large number of cells. Now, there are several types of necrosis, which we'll discuss now. First is coagulative necrosis. In this, there is coagulation of the proteins of the cell, coagulation of proteins of the cell, and it looks like wedge shape, and because of coagulation of proteins, it will give it a pale color. Second is liquefactive. In this, the necrotic tissue is liquefied, and it is the characteristic of brain infarction. This is very important. Abscesses or pancreatitis. Third is caseous necrosis. Caseous means cheesy. So it gives the necrosis a cheese-like experience, a cheese-like appearance, and it is particularly seen in granulomatous inflammation of TB or fungal infection. Next type is fat necrosis. In this type of necrosis, the calcium binds with the dead fats. This process is called saponification, and this saponification gives this type of necrosis a chalky like appearance, like a chalk. And the last type of necrosis is fibrinoid necrosis. It is when there is damage to the wall of blood vessel. It is seen in malignant hypertension or vasculitis. So this was all for today's video. As a review, we discussed about growth adaptations, that our body can adapt to the stress in 3 ways. If there is increase in stress, it can respond by overtaking hypertrophy or hyperplasia. If there is decrease in stress, it can lead to hypotrophy or atrophy. Or if there is change in stress, it can lead to metaplasia. And then we discussed about cellular injury. There are 5 main types of cellular injury, which were inflammation, nutritional deficiencies, hypoxia, trauma, genetic mutations. And then we discussed about the cell death. Cell death is basically the loss of nucleus. And then we discussed the differences between necrosis and apoptosis. Thank you for watching this video. Keep subscribing and keep motivating.